Can you imagine a place where laughing, shopping in stores, or using the internet isn't allowed? Furthermore, you'd have to deal with power outages at night. This might seem hard to believe, but it's the reality for 25 million people living in North Korea. This is the dark side of the country, the Cold War. It all began at the end of World War II in the summer of 1945. As the war was winding down, Stalin's Soviet Union and the United States began to establish their spheres of influence, emerging as the two great powerful nations of the world. They divided Korea into two parts, with the Soviet Union taking control of the North, which became North Korea, and the United States controlling the South, which became South Korea. Thus, two nations were born with their respective influences, South Korea and North Korea. Just like their mentors, these two nations entered a long Cold War. One of the most significant figures in North Korea was Kim Il-sung, who was the grandfather of Kim Jong-il. He was born in Korea but later moved to Manchuria, where he joined fighters opposing the Japanese. He progressed in his positions and eventually joined the Soviet Army. The Soviet Union saw potential in him and supported him, allowing him to initiate a war with the South. After him, his son, Kim Jong-il, took over until his death in 2011, when the current leader, Kim Jong-un, assumed control. Political oppression. Things continued on the same path. If you've ever complained about the lack of respect for the country or the lack of freedom to speak, you'll be shocked to know what happens to people who dare to express even the slightest criticism of the North Korean government. Political oppression in North Korea is pervasive. People are constantly monitored, both physically and digitally. They are tirelessly taught to think in a certain way, with no room for different opinions. If you're North Korean, you face physical isolation from the rest of the world. You cannot leave the country without government permission. Those who can travel outside the borders are mostly diplomats, students, or athletes, and even they are monitored 24/7 and must attend special meetings when they return to North Korea. The same rule applies to foreign tourists visiting North Korea. During the tour, a guide will provide detailed instructions on attire, communication, and behavior. Photographing in certain areas or wandering alone is prohibited. Tours will be private, with a guide accompanying you at all times. Anyone attempting to leave or enter illegally or disobeying the norms will face severe consequences, such as forced labor. Isolation isn't the sole experience of North Koreans. They have access to only 28 websites, all controlled by the government. These sites offer limited information, such as typical recipes, local news, and data about the country's universities. If someone is caught listening to or watching foreign media content, they could be sent to political prisoner camps or even executed. The country ranks last, the 180th place out of 180 countries, in terms of press freedom, meaning they face the worst situation in the world in this aspect. This is because the government avoids external influences that might interfere with the indoctrination that glorifies the Kim dynasty and demonizes other countries, especially the United States and South Korea. On the other hand, the Kim family has rewritten history portraying Kim Il-sung as the sole liberator of Korea from Japanese occupation. He forces his people to call him the eternal leader, and statues of him are scattered throughout the country. His anniversary falls in late December, but it's lamentable that North Koreans cannot celebrate it. Another surprising rule of the North Korean government is the ban on laughing, consuming alcohol, or engaging in leisure or celebratory activities during the mourning period for the late Kim Jong-il. Every year, there's a 10-day mourning period starting from December 17th. In 2021, which marked the 10th anniversary of Kim Jong-il's death, the period was extended to 11 days. If anyone disobeys this rule, they will be arrested and treated as a criminal. Moreover, the North Korean government not only monitors and restricts access to information, but also dictates how people should dress and present themselves physically. The country has an official website for approved hairstyles, with 14 options for women and 14 for men, totaling 28 styles. Currently, the country has banned 9 fashion styles, such as tight pants or skinny jeans, long hair for married women, leather jackets, trench coats, spiky hairstyles, brightly colored dyed hair, ripped jeans, mohawk style, and nose piercings. Should you plan to defy these rules, be aware that you could be sent to forced labor camps, also known as gulags. In these camps, political prisoners and their families are forced to perform hard labor. Many innocent people are sent to these camps due to the 3-generation punishment policy. This means that up to 3 generations of a prisoner's family can be sent to the camp, regardless of guilt. Merely associating with former prisoners or North Korean defectors is enough to be considered guilty. These camps, like Camp 15 and 16, have the capacity to house up to 20,000 detainees each. It is estimated that the total number of prisoners is around 120,000. Reports from the north indicate the food shortage the country is facing is one of the greatest famines in its history since the Great Famine of the 1900s. Approximately 5% of the population, or about 1 million people, have been affected by food insecurity. North Korea is reluctant to open its economy and relies on self-sufficiency, even facing unfavorable agricultural soils. The pandemic has further exacerbated this situation, and the country is adamant about reducing imports and not opening its borders. Some international organizations have offered assistance to deal with food shortages in North Korea. However, the country's national newspaper discourages trust in external aid, likening it to ingesting poisonous sweets. The situation is so severe that approximately 40% of the North Korean population is facing malnutrition and relies on humanitarian aid, according to surveys conducted by the World Food Program. The situation is so critical that the government has gone as far as instructing its citizens to use feces as fertilizer to increase agricultural production. Each citizen is required to produce 150 kilograms of manure from human waste and work in state factories. Additionally, there are challenges in electricity supply. Although energy supply used to be interrupted at night during the reign of Kim Jong-il, there was an improvement under the government of Kim Jong-un, with street lights on at night. However, this improvement was short-lived due to growing demands in the capital, Pyongyang. Since the separation of the Koreas, North Korea has faced major difficulties with its totalitarian government. If you've made it this far, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot.